The format for this meeting is an interview with an alcoholic, the hot seat, inside the alcoholic studio. A speaker will be asked a series of questions that range from their personal story, the steps, relationship with God, and carrying the message. There are no right answers, just a fun and interesting way to share the speaker's personal insight. Our speaker for tonight is Leah. Timekeeper, please allow 90 seconds per question. The meeting may run slightly longer. Members, please feel free to leave if needed. Speaker, please say done when you have finished your answers, or please say pass on questions you would prefer to skip. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, let's begin. Leah, please generally describe, in your own words, our basic text, the book Alcoholics Anonymous.
So, for me, it's a design for living. The book it's just a set of guidelines that I follow to the best of my abilities each day. And it outlines how to stay sober. It's a guide to staying sober, basically. Yeah. Oh, done.
Are you an alcoholic? And if so, what personally makes you an alcoholic?
I am definitely an alcoholic. And the way that it was described to me is that I have a spiritual malady, an allergy, and an obsession. And, those things together, like when I drink alcohol, I cannot stop. And I can't tell you what's going to happen on the other side of that first drink. Done.
What does the concept of anonymity mean to you?
I love this question. Anonymity for me means not sharing my identity with the outside world, my alcoholic identity, essentially. So, I don't advertise that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anonymity was taught to me as like I don't identify myself by first and last name or by photo as a member. Done.
Please give us a brief sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit.
Oh my gosh, it was miserable. By the end, it was progressive. It started out as fun, or I thought it was fun. And by the end, it was something that I needed. As opposed to an addition to my life. And it became the most important thing by far. Like, alcohol was my solution to everything. It didn't matter, whether I got a new job, whether I lost the job, whether it was just Tuesday. It was the most important part of my life. And I foresaw myself dying an alcoholic death. And that was my goal. So it was sad. It's very sad. Done.
Alcoholism is described in the book as a fatal illness. What does that mean to you?
Okay, so like I just said, for me, I didn't think that there was a solution to alcoholism. I didn't know that it was a disease. I didn't any of that. So at the time, my best answer was, this life is miserable. I can't stop drinking, so I may as well drink myself to death. And so I absolutely believe that if I pick up a drink, that will be what happens. I will die. That's fatal. Done.
What are the conditions of your mind and body that accompany your alcoholism?
Yeah, the obsession, when I take a drink, or even if I'm not, especially before I got sober, when I wasn't drinking, I was constantly thinking about it, and trying to think about how I was going to get it, where I was going to find it. It ruled my world. And physically, I don't know that it was my experience, but I could see it becoming something on which I was physically dependent. To the point of having withdrawals. Done.
In your understanding, what is the role of a sponsor? Do you have a sponsor? And how often are you in contact?
The role of a sponsor is to put my hand in the hand of God's. And I have a sponsor. I just called her before I got here, and I was like, I share with her about my thoughts, and I try to share my life with her, I guess, because I hide a lot. That's like what I do. I just retreat. So for me, it's been really good to have somebody that I can share with openly, no matter what that might look like. Done.
How have your sponsorship needs changed from early sobriety until now?
I would say now, yeah, it's less urgent per se, like, because through developing a relationship with a sponsor, I've developed some tools, and so it's not like I'm going to drink and I'm going to do it right now. It's sort of I foresee this happening, or like I'm feeling this way, like what can be done. So I guess, yeah, yes, I don't really know how to describe that, but she helps me to stay on the path. Done.
Have you completed the 12 steps? And if so, what is your suggested time frame for completing the steps of AA?
So I have completed the 12 steps. I balked a lot in the beginning, so it took me a while. I don't recommend that. Once I finally was serious about it, it didn't take long, probably 2 or 3 months. But yeah, I mean, for me, I would now suggest do it as quickly as you can. But it took me a while to become totally willing. Done.
In your own words, please describe steps 1, 2, and 3.
When I think about the first 3 steps, I think about the principles. So the first step is honesty. Step 2 is hope. And step 3 is faith. And so I guess what that means for me is like not giving up, but just becoming willing to give this program a shot, and then trusting the process. Done.
What does your unmanageability and self-will look like?
Oh my. Okay, so what that looks like for me today is usually balking at a lot of things, or talking about the problems instead of taking action. So it's just sitting in the mess, I would say, for a long time until it's painful enough to do the work. Done.
What is your concept of a power greater than yourself, and how are you turning your will and your life over to it?
That's something that has evolved through the years. I would say what that looks like for me now is like a spirit of the universe sort of thing. When I was new, I heard a lot about, finding a higher power, and it was something that I was so nervous about. I didn't feel that I had a higher power when I was brand new, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to drink. I need this. Someone tell me how to get it. And you do that through taking the steps, but I wanted it now, not at the end of taking the steps. So, yeah, it's a trust and a reliance today. Done.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 4 and 5.
Oh, I wasn't afraid of them. I was excited about it. For step 4 especially, I was ready to sit down and write out all of these things, and all the ways I felt people had wronged me. And step 5 was so freeing. I would talk about stuff all the time, but sitting down and doing the process of step 5 was a spiritual experience that I don't think I was expecting. And to identify my own mistakes was definitely eye-opening for me. I liked to point the finger a lot, and so it was really cool to see that I played a part. Done.
What does the exact nature of our wrongs mean to you?
So, what that looks like for me is instead of approaching somebody for an amends with like a list of specific scenarios or something of that nature, it's the exact nature of my wrongs. So, instead of saying I lied to you about whatever, it's like I was dishonest. So I guess more of an overview as opposed to like a list. And what I found for me is that it leaves more room for communication, but like not argument about stuff. And like, oh, but I didn't do that, or yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my mind it does. Done.
Makes sense through these headphones. Please briefly describe, in your own words, steps 6 and 7.
Okay, so steps 6 and 7. Yeah, again, it was a lot of identifying my own defects or like places that could use work. When I got here, I was super unwilling to do that. And so it was terrifying. Like, I heard people talking about how steps 4 and 5 were scary, and like 6 and 7 were the ones that almost got me out of here. It's not that bad. It's not bad at all. Like somebody showed me a different perspective on them. So instead of looking at them as, like these terrible problems about myself, it was just like, there's room for growth. And then allowing that to happen and not trying to control. Done.
What are some of your character defects, and are they being removed?
Oh my. I would hope so. For me, it looks like things like gossip, procrastination, stuff like that. Having a bad attitude. I don't know exactly how to describe that, but like I have a bad attitude a lot. And like I was angry. I was very angry when I first got here. And so I would say that they definitely are at bay. Every so often they'll pop out and I like immediately call my sponsor and, like get to work on why that's happening, or like what area of my life is, or like not my life, but the program is my life. So what area of the program I'm lacking in order to continue back on the path of allowing them to be taken away. So I hope. Done.
Please briefly describe steps 8 and 9.
So in step 8, it's making a list of people that we've harmed. I was taught that comes off my 4th step. And step 9 is making those direct amends. That was something that I tried to work my way around. I tried to look for indirect ways to make amends. I still do on occasion. And I love that I have a sponsor who reminds me, like it literally says direct amends. And so if that's an option, that's what you're going to do. And so I feel very grateful that she has not allowed me to find my own way that I feel could be easier or softer. And I find a lot of freedom in those steps. Absolutely. Done.
Why is it important for you to straighten out your past?
Ooh, well, I had an experience recently where I found myself hiding from an individual, and it's stuff like that like reminds me of the freedom that I want, and the freedom that is absolutely attainable through taking the steps of this program. I've since gotten to make amends to this person, and like I don't have to hide again. So that's really important to me, like the freedom that is offered as a result of taking the action in this program. Done.
When you were actively drinking, did you drink whiskey in your milk?
Oh, is that the question?
Oh,
okay. No, I've never drank whiskey in my milk. Done.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 10 and 11.
So, step 10 is, in my experience, an immediate appraisal of my actions. And what that looks like for me today is when my character defects pop up, I know, like it's very apparent, and making that right as soon as possible. Step 11, in my experience, is focused on prayer and meditation. And so what that looks like for me is carving out some time, usually in the evening, to sit either in silence or like listen to a guided meditation of some sort, and just kind of come back to center, and find a little bit of peace in the chaos of life. Done.
So I know you touched on it briefly, but what does meditation mean to you, and how do you practice it?
So for me, meditation used to look like this perfect experience where I was silent, or this is what I thought it would look like. And, where my mind was silent and I was focused and present and in tune with everything and blah, blah, blah. And I've since learned that that is not my experience, and that is okay and it's not wrong. And what happened for me as a result of that is it opened up meditation for me. Like, I used to just think like I didn't do it correctly and so I shouldn't even try. But now it's okay when the thoughts come. Just I try not to attach to them and let them pass. And I've been doing this new thing, listening from the outside in. So sitting in a space and finding the noise that is the furthest away and focusing on that, and then just coming more present and closer to myself. And at the end of it, it's all just a way to find a little bit of peace and to focus on, I guess, connecting with a higher power. Done.
Please briefly describe step 12.
So step 12 for me is passing on what was so freely given to me. As a result of these steps, I've had this spiritual experience, and I am now in a unique position that I can share that with someone else. What that looks like for me is to have sponsees, and I am actively sponsored, so that's how I sponsor. I stay in contact, we work steps, and I guess just stay connected. I attend meetings, I share when asked. I'm of service to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am interested in ensuring its future. Done.
Can you share with us a spiritual experience you have had as the result of these steps?
I don't have one specific moment that comes to mind, but for me, I'll be doing something and have this moment of like, oh my goodness, this is so basic and so normal, or like, quote, normal. And before, this wasn't something that I could do, and like that could look like showing up for my family, which I got to do last evening, and just like being a part of that experience, and not having to be the center of everything, the center of attention at all times. And it's moments like those where like I get that warm feeling from head to toe, and those are the sorts of spiritual experiences that I've had. And just experiencing the steps in action. When I was new, that didn't seem like, I heard people talk about that and it didn't seem like it made sense to me. But, it's those moments of when the character defects pop up, like the immediate step 10 happening, and being able to identify where I have been wrong. And so for me, it's those little moments that together create the spiritual experience. Done.
What is the message of AA, and why is it important to carry this message?
So the message of AA is that, in my opinion, at least, is that it is possible to stay sober. Here's how you do it. It's clearly outlined. And it's so important because there are countless alcoholics that are yet unreached. And, if I hadn't heard about Alcoholics Anonymous, I wouldn't be here today. I don't know that I would be alive. And I definitely would not be here in this room. But Alcoholics Anonymous shows me that it is possible to live a different life based on spiritual principles. And alcohol was the center of my world, and it was my solution. And what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me are tools and other, Alcoholics Anonymous is now my solution. So I have other tools to live life. Done.
What are some of the principles you are practicing in your affairs today?
Goodness. Well, starting with honesty, that's one that I struggle with a lot, but at the end of the day, it always feels better. It doesn't feel good to not be honest anymore. What else? Hope. I hope that I can bring hope to others, and that I do. I've had certain people share with me, actually, that I've given them hope, essentially, and I think that's crazy. I don't view myself as that person, but it's really cool, I guess, when others say that. Brotherly love, and that's been a result of the fellowship and just showing up. And what other ones are there? Faith. Yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that, so I'm going to just say done.
Why is it important to put the welfare of others ahead of your own?
So, at my core, I'm a selfish person. My first thought still is usually about me. And when I put others ahead of myself, it takes me out of that self-will, and I guess just allows God to be more present in my life. I'm also learning that it is possible to put others ahead of myself too much sometimes. So finding that middle ground and making sure that I'm not selfishly putting myself first, but also remembering that it's important to consider my own needs. Done. How do you determine or gauge the quality of your sobriety in AA? Oh, my. So, for me, I see it a lot in my reactions to things or responses, and if I'm not reacting, but rather, I guess, just, not reacting. I'm a very big reactor normally when I'm not spiritually fit. And what that looks like for me is usually getting angry, especially with the people that I'm closest to, and that turns into yelling or something of that nature. And that is a very clear sign that I am not spiritually fit. But I guess along the way there are different cues, and so doing the work before it arrives at that point has been super helpful. Done. Why do you think alcoholics relapse? Oh my. I have not had experience with that yet, so I'm going to skip. Are you willing and able to sponsor other members currently? I am willing. I do have a few sponsees. So I like to ensure that I have enough time to offer. So I would not consider myself able at the moment because I like to be sure that the new person or just anyone in general who asks me to sponsor them would be, getting what they should out of a sponsor. Done.
Presently, what is the most important activity in your recovery program?
Oddly enough, I would say sponsorship. Sponsoring others keeps me accountable. It reminds me so much of myself. I've learned a lot through sponsees and taking other people through the steps. And recently I've been involved in general service, and that's been a really cool aspect of my recovery. And it's expanded my knowledge base, I suppose. Done.
Would you please generally describe the purpose of the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous?
So the 12 steps are for individual recovery. The 12 traditions are for group unity, maybe, or wellness. And then the 12 concepts are for AA as a whole. So I think the traditions can be used in an individual basis, but usually they're for groups. Done.
Can you give us some examples of meeting etiquette?
Oh my. Each meeting is autonomous, so that's really cool. For me, what that looks like is being quiet in a meeting. I'm not always great at that, but I remember when I was new and I was whispering on the side, and somebody approached me about it, and I definitely heard what they were saying. So for me, that's a really big, important part, because it allows others around me to hear the message, and it's respectful to the people that are sharing. So that's something that I find to be very important. But each group has its own meeting etiquette. Some groups are, yes, it's fun. There's one group that I go to where they have bells and they have this and they have that. And so it's encouraged to be rowdy. So I just like to follow the etiquette that each group asks. Done.
What role models do you have in sobriety?
So I look up to my sponsor, and part of the reason that I appreciate her so much is that she is willing to be human and, say I don't know, or I was wrong, or any of those things. So I see a lot of humility in her, and for me that's attractive. So I view her as a role model, absolutely. And then recently on my general service journey, I've been getting to know others and sort of see what service looks like to them. And that's been very inspiring. And I think it's cool because everyone has something to offer. So it's like everyone here in this room is a role model in their own way. Especially I guess it just depends in which area, so everyone. Done.
What advice do you have for newcomers in AA?
Yeah, get a sponsor. Absolutely, first and foremost. I'm backtracking through what I did, and it was not a great experience. So I didn't get a sponsor right away, and I don't recommend that. So get a sponsor and start working steps. Get a home group, get a sobriety date, absolutely. Just the basics, get a big book and jump in, and a service commitment. Done.
What advice do you have for old-timers in AA?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to skip that.
Last question. Can you please describe what this experience was like?
This has been really good. It's definitely different. It puts me a little bit outside of my comfort zone, which is good. And and it's changing it up. I love how much it's made me think about the different aspects of the program. Sometimes I feel like, going to chair meeting, it's not rehearsed, but like it's the same. My story doesn't change, so it's the same thing. So this has definitely been an interesting spin, and allowed me an opportunity to think about different parts of the program in a unique way.
Excellent. As a bit of bonus material, is there a message or a thought or a comment you'd like to share with the recovery community of the world?
I just think it's really amazing that the language of the heart is spoken everywhere and it's universal. So like we're here right now doing this, but this message has an opportunity to reach people worldwide, and I think that's super, it's super cool. Like I really appreciate that technology has allowed us an opportunity to reach people in ways that we might not have been able to before. And I just think like living in the present moment is super important. That's something I've been trying to do more of. Like the book talks about, we don't regret the past and we don't wish to shut the door on it. And I guess just living for today as opposed to living in yesterday or tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Leah, for your willingness to be here and to share with all of us. So we'd like to just thank you one more time. From the old preamble, I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a big book, it's time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, scatter it, and then learn from it what it means to be an AA.